Hello, welcome to I Hate Rock Music, and I'm going to do a video today on a band called Creepy John Thomas. And Creepy John Thomas's real name is Johnny Driver, and he had quite a career. But originally came out of Melbourne, Australia, in a band called The Flies, and then somehow ended up in Dusseldorf in 1967, and worked with famous German producer Conny Plank with a band called Rust that put out an album called Come With Me. And the Rust album Come With Me has some blues rock tendencies, but tends to be a little bit more psychedelic. And so it's been included with Creepy John Thomas box sets that are now available. But I'm going to focus on just the two Creepy John Thomas albums. The first album came out on RCA in 1969, and then the second one, Brother Batbone, came out on Teldec in 1970, and they're really excellent. So let me get into the band a little bit. They had Andy Marks on guitar and bass, Helmut Pohl on drums, and John Thomas on guitar. And he also worked with a bass player named Dave Hutchins, and then a drummer named Roy Otumbra, who was in a band called Cochise after this. And Helmut Pohl, the drummer, ended up in the notorious German band Gomorrah, and I'll probably be doing a video on them. Pretty interesting band. But Creepy John Thomas is pretty cool. The only thing I can kind of reference it to is maybe the Edgar Broughton band, and that tends to be kind of ironic because John Thomas actually ended up in London and was with the Edgar Broughton band when they recorded their album Bandages, which is one of my favorite Edgar Broughton band albums. And so he really got around Dusseldorf in Australia, Melbourne, Australia, and then London. And later on, he ended up working with Annie Lennox, of all people. So he ended up landing on his feet pretty well. But I'm going to focus in on these two Creepy John Thomas albums. The first album tends to be pretty much your classic blues rock bands, but he's got a really cool guitar tone, and his vocals are pretty gruff, kind of comparable to Edgar Broughton in some respects. But one thing that struck me about the first album in 1969, it has a really interesting melodic sense. So even though it's in the blues rock mold, the tunes tend to be really strong. And so I think that first album from 1969 is really excellent, and pretty much runs the gamut of different types of basically blues-based rock, and has just a the melodic sense, I think, comes from a little bit of that psychedelia that's still there, but it's pretty minimal, pretty straightforward blues rock. And as I say, if you're a fan of the Edgar Broughton band, you'll really like that first Creepy John Thomas album. And then you get to that second album, Brother Batbone, and boy, what a interesting change. First of all, it's really stark and stripped down compared to the first record, and includes some really cool acoustic blues on it. There's only 6 tunes. They're pretty long, but it's still a pretty short record. But it really reminds me of the Groundhogs a lot. So if you're a Groundhogs fan, you definitely need to check out and or get the Brother Batbone album. I was struck. I'm a huge Groundhogs fan, and when I heard this Brother Batbone album by Creepy John Thomas, I was really pretty floored. His vocals even kind of remind me of T.S. McPhee in some respects. But great guitar player. The guitar work on the first album is really strong, but as I mentioned, it's a lot more stark on the second album. And you can really hear a lot of really strong guitar work at the forefront, just because there's the recording is so stripped down. And the guitar work is just stunning. And the tunes are really cool too. And as I say, they definitely make me think of the Groundhogs, both in the sound of the guitars, the sound of the vocals, the style of writing. They're basically pretty riff oriented, so the arrangements aren't overly complex, but they have a great feel. And both the Creepy John Thomas albums are recorded really well, and I think they're both worth having. Highly recommended. Definitely a couple of the best blues rock albums I've heard, and that includes the UK. So So anyway, some great work. Johnny Driver, also known as Creepy John Thomas. Um, I'll post the Rust album below too, so you can hear that and hear kind of what they were doing in 1967, because it's just definitely Creepy John Thomas with a different name, but just a different era, so it has a lot of different feel to it. But I highly recommend the two Creepy John Thomas albums. As always, the links are posted below. Check them out. Great, 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 great blues rock. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music. I'm Brian Fox.